Year one of the Micah Shrewsberry era is underway, and even though the Notre Dame men's basketball team is projected to finish dead last in the ACC, there's already a ton of excitement around the program. Why that is and how the Irish can have a successful season, coming right up.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. Today is Monday, November 13th, so thanks for getting your week started here by making this your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I'm a Notre Dame alum and producer covering college football for Fox Sports, and this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Let's talk some hoops. Since the football team is coming off a bye, I feel like this was a perfect time to do a deep dive on the men's basketball team, and to do that, I spoke with Tom Noie from the South Bend Tribune to discuss what he's liked about the team so far, and then we preview the rest of the season. It's not really a season preview considering the Irish have already played a couple games, but that's really what we're doing here, and Tom is always my go-to source whenever it comes to the men's hoops team. He's been on the beat for over 2 decades, and he had some really interesting things to say about the team, Micah Shrewsberry since he took over the program, and he also shared some great Mike Brey stories at the end, so stay tuned for that. I should point out, though, that we taped this interview on Friday, one day before the Irish lost at home to Western Carolina. And look, that was a bad loss. There's probably going to be a lot of those this year with such a young and inexperienced roster. But Tom and I both think that there are plenty of reasons to be excited about the future of the program. So let's get right into it. Let's bring him in. All right, I'm joined now by Tom Noie from the South Bend Tribune. And who better to talk about the Notre Dame men's hoops team than Tom, who is entering his 26th season on the beat. The college basketball season officially kicked off, and the Irish are 1-0 in the Micah Shrewsberry era, so they can hang the banner. But what have been your early impressions of the team so far?
Still early in the season with this group, trying to figure out who they are, what they're going to be. But for a first game, I know it's Niagara. I know it's 70-63. And in seasons past, under the previous coaching regime, you'd look at 70-63, and there'd be all kinds of bells and whistles and warning signs going off about they couldn't do this, they couldn't do that. Why'd they only beat a team by like Niagara by 7? But with this Micah Shrewsberry team this season, I absolutely loved what I saw on Monday night, because in the secret scrimmage and the exhibition game against a D3 team, even Micah Shrewsberry said the other night, he said, it was easy for us. There was no pressure. They scored over 90 points in that secret scrimmage against Xavier that we're not supposed to talk about, and they scored over 90 against Hanover. So it was like, yeah, we're just going to go out and score 90 again. Well, when that doesn't happen and they're in a 12-point hole in the first half and they're not making shots, and they go 3 of 17 from 3 in the entire game. So they've got to figure out a different way to win, number one, when it's not pretty offensively, and they have to dig in and kind of grind it out defensively and do it without Jase, who's out with a broken hand, probably through next week. Maybe we'll see what happens the week after that. But to do all those things and to come back and really do what they did in the second half against Niagara, that was a big step for this team and a big step for this program in game 1 under Micah Shrewsberry.
It was really encouraging to see. It was great to watch the team fight back, and it looked like a pretty electric atmosphere, which is not what you'd expect at the beginning of November. You were there. What did you feel like from the stadium, or from the arena, I should say?
Like I'm gonna fall off my chair right now, because, and I wrote about it on Monday night, that type of atmosphere is something you see in February when Notre Dame is fighting for a double bye in the ACC tournament, or they're fighting to get into the NCAA tournament. The crowd was only maybe 6,400. I know they listed at 73, but they always inflate those numbers. But just to have the energy and the juice in that crowd, you didn't know what to expect, because there were so many times where the fans didn't bother showing up for even big games last year. I still remember the Marquette game where John Shoemate's going into the Ring of Honor, and it's the last Saturday game before the holiday break, and the student section was like 1,500, maybe even not that. So it's been a tough sell for the student body and for the locals. I think with what they saw on Monday night and who was doing what for this Notre Dame basketball team, I think they'll be back. Now, let's see, on a Saturday afternoon, 2:00 tip in the heart of college football season. I know Notre Dame football's got a bye, but there's a lot of good college football games on TV tomorrow. Let's see what they do tomorrow afternoon at 2:00 against Western Carolina.
You already mentioned it a little bit, who was doing what, and I don't know if
I
any
led
player
you
was
into
doing
that one.
I don't know if anyone did a little bit more than Marcus Burton, the hometown kid. Look, you're very familiar with his game. You followed him for a long time, but were you surprised at all by his record-setting debut?
Absolutely. Nobody saw that coming. And if they did, they said they did, they're lying. Like, I don't think even Marcus Burton saw it was coming, because when he signed, when Notre Dame was making him a recruiting priority prior to his senior season, it was like, yeah, he's scoring a lot of points, but the league that he plays in across town at Penn High School, the Northern Indiana Conference, he was doing against guys who are 5'10", 5'9". There's not a lot of size. There's skill, but it's not high level skill at all times. So it was almost kind of easy for him to do what he did in high school. And you're like, let's just wait to see what happens at Notre Dame. And when you see Marcus Burton, either the other night after what he did against Niagara or last year at Penn High School, he seems like he's still a high school kid. Like he seems
He's got
more
braces.
Like he still has braces. He's just got a baby face about him. His hands are really small, like a high school kid. You're like, how in the world is this guy going to survive college basketball? But I think the main thing that has allowed Marcus to do what he did in going for 29 points, and no freshman in program history has been able to do that, is the more I hear and listen to Micah Shrewsberry and his philosophies and what he is, who he is as a coach, I think the fact that Micah did not run to the transfer portal in the offseason to get himself a veteran point guard and a veteran handler just raised the confidence level of Marcus Burton. Instead of Marcus Burton coming in and being like, well, I might play, but I got to play behind this guy, or I got to play behind that guy. Instead of loading the point guard position up, Micah Shrewsberry very pointedly in the springtime went to Marcus Burton when he was still a senior at Penn High School and said, you're the guy, you're driving this car, get yourself ready to be a starter as a true freshman. And I think that just lifted Marcus Burton up to say, maybe there was a little skepticism on whether or not he could play at this level. But when he heard that, he was like, yeah, all right, I can be the guy. And we saw that the other night.
Yeah, and it's a good way to approach the season for Notre Dame, because I don't think anyone has high expectations in terms of the win-loss column and what this team is going to be able to accomplish as it pertains to like the NCAA tournament. But this season is going to go a long way for the rest of the Micah Shrewsberry era. They're playing a lot of freshmen, which is something that I'm certainly not accustomed to seeing just from the Mike Brey era. It was very rare that you saw a true freshman start the season opener, let alone two, because Shrewsberry's oldest son, Braden, also got the start. So Burton is obviously just one player in this freshman class. What have been your impressions of the other freshmen on the roster? Because we saw Kerry Booth get some time, Logan Imes as well. What do you think the future is for that group?
Yeah, the motto of Mike Brey, get old, stay old, that is right out the window, because they are not old at all. And it doesn't bother Micah Shrewsberry. Like, he's going to play all these four freshmen, and they all played a major role against Niagara the other night, whether it was Burton or Shrewsberry. Two freshmen have not started at Notre Dame the first game since 1998. That was 25 years ago when David Graves and Troy Murphy did it. So Burton and Braden Shrewsberry and some select company. I love Shrewsberry. I love Logan Imes and Kerry Booth. You can just see the NBA type of potential.
Yeah.
Not NBA now, but NBA down the line for a guy like Kerry Booth. You got to remember, he only turned 17 in July. He should still really be a high school senior. And he looks like it. Like we talk about Marcus Burton and having braces. Kerry Booth looks all of 15 years old as well. So they're so young, but they're going to be the foundational pieces and the building blocks for what Micah Shrewsberry is going to build here. And we talk about not having high expectations. That's all on the outside. On the inside of the Notre Dame men's basketball program, Micah Shrewsberry always has said from the start, I'm preparing this year like we're going to win in March and we're going to go to the NCAA tournament. Now that may be a little too high and pie in the sky type of belief, but from what I've seen from Coach Shrewsberry so far, the guy can back it up. Because when we were talking about the Xavier scrimmage, the secret scrimmage, and it was like, how are they ever going to hang with Xavier? Like, Xavier's going to do this, Xavier's going to do that, and they're going to crush him here. And then Notre Dame goes and wins at Xavier, because 3 days earlier, Micah Shrewsberry had me because he said, we're going to play a secret scrimmage in 3 days. and I'm preparing like we're going to play for a national championship. And I kind of sat up a little straighter in my seat, like, it's not like he's just saying we're going to go and hopefully try to compete and hopefully try to do this and hopefully do that. Micah Shrewsberry knows only one way, and that's foot on the gas, full speed ahead, and we'll see what happens with that this season.
Yeah, and you could see it during the game against Niagara the other night because after, I don't remember the bucket exactly, but there was a timeout. He was getting the crowd riled up, ready to go. It felt like a late February game as the team was preparing for the NCAA tournament. But I love hearing that from Shrewsberry, that he is committed to getting this team ready to win in March. But for you, for us on the outside, how would you define success for this team in year one of the Shrewsberry era?
This team went 11-21 overall and 3-17 in the ACC last year. I think if they could hover somewhere around the 500 mark overall, whatever that might look like, 14-13 or 13-12, whatever, and then build off those 3 ACC wins. Like everybody looks at this roster and says freshman, no true senior leaders, no real upperclassmen. Their main big guy in Kebajai is going to be out for a while. There was one Notre Dame guy, Notre Dame fan, Notre Dame graduate that emailed me this week and said, boy, I just took one look at the ACC schedule. We may not even win a game. We may go 0-20. And I fired back at him and I said, that's a little short-sighted, and you're not giving Micah Shrewsberry any credit about what he's going to be able to do in this league, because I guarantee you they may not go 10-10. They may not go 8-12. But there will be a game somewhere along the line, given Micah Shrewsberry's ability to scheme his team into success, that they're going to pick off a win here or there, maybe at home, maybe on the road where they went winless last year, where nobody sees it coming and they have to sit up back and say, whoa, look at what Notre Dame did to Team X. So I think if they can build off the 3-17, maybe finish 7-13, maybe finish even 8-12, that would be a small step of success in the right direction for this program, because I know Micah talks about being so positive and his staff is so positive, but eventually the newness of everything, the lack of experience, the lack of overall talent that they have in the ACC may catch up with them.
Yeah, I have 2 problems with that person saying that Notre Dame is not going to win a game, because one, it's college basketball. Crazy things happen all the time. There's crazy upsets, especially if a team tries and they compete as hard as Micah Shrewsberry's teams often do. And also, they play Louisville in February, and Louisville is out here losing to some Division II teams. And I say that because I'm from Louisville. I'm not a Louisville fan, but I have a lot of Louisville friends who might be listening to this, so I had to get a shot in. But you talked about Shrewsberry's scheme, and I actually wanted to dive into that a little bit. When his name was brought up as a potential replacement for Mike Brey, I started watching a little bit more of Penn State, and they were gunning from 3. They led the Big Ten in 3-point field goals attempted and made, but they were second in 3-point percentage, so they were pretty efficient shooting the ball. Then at his opening press conference, Shrewsberry said that he is a defensive-minded coach. So how would you describe his coaching philosophy and his scheme and how that's going to work at Notre Dame?
He has such an NBA background that it's going to be an NBA type of scheme. Like, who are we playing tonight? B, what's going to give us the best chance to win this game? Maybe it's to shoot 17, 25, 33 pointers like they did against Xavier when they had all kinds of shots falling, so they made it look easy on offense. Maybe it's to slow the game down and grind it and just dig in and defend. And if they have to win 62-57, then they'll win 62-57. I don't think Micah Shrewsberry is married to, I'm going to play style X on offense and I'm going to play style Y on defense. When he talked about, hey, I'm a defensive coach and we're going to guard and you are who you are, the fan base here got all excited, like, oh, Notre Dame's finally going to play defense. They're going to do this and they're going to do that. And it was like, he says that in one breath, and then in the next breath, he's saying, we want to play with pace. We want to play up tempo. We want to get down the floor. And even in the Niagara game, every time they got a defensive rebound, Mike is standing on the sideline saying, push it, push it, push it. So it's not like they're going to go and just grind teams and be happy scoring 60 points. That may happen on a given night, but it's going to be whatever it's going to be, give them a chance for success, which is why Monday was so interesting, because when they go 3 of 17, you're like, they probably had no idea what to do scoring wise, because if a Mike Brey team went 3 for 17 from 3, they were probably losing the game. This Micah Shrewsberry team goes 3 of 17 from three. It doesn't have his main interior presence in Kebajai, and it still scored 48 points in the paint. That is an encouraging sign as to they don't know how they're going to get there after 40 minutes, but with Micah Shrewsberry scheming the way he can, you can pretty well bet they will get there.
Yeah, and I don't want people to look at the box score and see that Notre Dame went 3 of 17 from three and all of a sudden think this is a bad shooting team. I think it was a bad night. I think they're going to get better. I love the way Braden Shrewsberry shoots the ball. Something you brought up, too, that I wanted to ask about. You mentioned that Shrewsberry has an NBA background, and he is not the only person on the staff with an NBA background. There's a lot of guys in that program who have ties to the NBA. So what can you tell us about the guys who Shrewsberry hired? I know there's some guys he brought over from Penn State, but there's other guys on the staff who have NBA backgrounds. So what can you tell us about them and what fans should know about the guys working behind the scenes?
They're just like Micah Shrewsberry. Like they've got the Micah Shrewsberry type of DNA as far as their coaching staff. Kyle Getter knows Micah Shrewsberry. They both went to Hanover College together. Mike Farrelly, he comes from Mike Farrelly's best friend in college basketball is Phil Martelli Jr. So he's got a real big time college basketball coaching background. And then Ryan Owens, the number 3 assistant, he's very tied into the state of Indiana as far as recruiting. And when Ryan Owens was hired here, he said, I'm here for one reason and one reason only. I'm here to get players out of Indiana. So it's a pretty diverse staff. It's a different kind of staff than we've seen. It's not Micah Shrewsberry hiring a friend here or a friend there, or even a former Notre Dame player, which is what Mike Brey did. So it's a very diverse staff. You listen to those guys talk basketball, and you can't help but get excited and say, man, you know what? This program might be going places because I like the makeup of it. I like the pieces of this program, and you especially like the guy who's leading it.
We'll be right back with Tom to talk more about what the future holds for the Notre Dame men's basketball program, but I wanted to take this opportunity to tell you about one of our sponsors here, Gametime. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all of the fun you're going to have. If you plan on attending the Wake Forest game this weekend and are still in need of a ticket, Gametime is the perfect place for you. It is the fastest-growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. You get images of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. You can buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. And the tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So we all think that the program is going places. We all think they're headed in the right direction, but they're still very young. Shrewsberry's made the joke before that during practices they have to have breaks for orange slices and juice boxes because the guys are so young. So realistically, how long do you think this rebuild is going to take? Or I guess a better way to ask that is, when do you think Notre Dame is going to make the NCAA tournament again?
I gave it a 3-year window, and it might be longer than that because of the entire rebuild. I said 3 years when it looked like Micah Shrewsberry was going to be hired or it was moving in that direction. But then you kind of maybe have to extend it out a little bit more because of the complete overhaul that he had to do with the roster. Like he walked in the door here and was hired. He had 3 guys on the roster, 3 scholarship players and a walk-on player in Alex Wade. That was it. Like it's hard to do it the way you're supposed to do it in college basketball this year because Notre Dame, Micah Shrewsberry's not running. He said the other day during signing day, we're not running to the transfer portal. Like we're not going to go get 3 or 4 guys next year and restock this roster. We're going to recruit high school kids. We're going to recruit 4-year guys like Logan Imes that Micah Shrewsberry has said is a program foundation type of player where he's going to be here for all 4 years. And in the ACC, guys are going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe friggin' Logan Imes is still playing at Notre Dame. So, I mean, it's going to be guys like that. And then you pick off 1, maybe 2 transfers the way they did in either Tate Davis, Julian Roper, or Kebajai. But it's going to be a process. And they're going to be like, if let's say crazy stuff happens and they wind up beating Virginia at home or they wind up beating Duke at home, that's going to accelerate a lot of the fans' thoughts on the timetable. Like, ooh, maybe they can make the tournament this year. Maybe they should make the tournament next year. It's still going to be a process because for as many high highs as they're going to have a few lows to where it's going to be like, boy, I don't know how they're ever going to get this done. But if you know Micah Shrewsberry, he's a builder, he's a believer, and he had that Penn State program on the rise when he left after 2 years. We'll see the incremental success that he'll have at Notre Dame, but I still say 3 years minimum before this team's a legit NCAA tournament team.
I think as we're sitting here today, 3 years makes sense. I think if the team shows significant improvement from year 1 to year 2, people might be thinking, hey, this team can make the NCAA tournament. But I also think that there's probably a portion of the fan base who's like 3 years in this modern era, you should be able to put together a roster via the transfer portal in one offseason. This is obviously a little bit different because of the circumstances you mentioned. Shrewsberry came in with a roster of 3 guys, so he was just trying to patch things together, whereas next year he'll have already been the head coach for a year. So I think his approach to the transfer portal is going to be a little bit different. Do you see that changing? Like, I know we said that we're not running to get transfers right now, but we all know the restrictions with Notre Dame and getting undergraduate transfers into the program. Do you see that evolving as the years go by and he's been around the program for a little bit longer?
I don't, because I don't see Notre Dame. I don't see Notre Dame saying, okay, we're going to relax the standard and we're going to help you here. We're going to help you there. Remember, when the transfer portal became the transfer portal in capital letters, the only transfers that Notre Dame got under Mike Brey, who had been here for 23 years and was the winningest coach in program history, they got 2 transfers, both graduate transfers, Paul Atkinson and Marcus Hammond. Before that, they were getting the traditional transfers of Cormac Ryan, Trey Wirtz, with the promise that they could sit out their first season at Notre Dame. Back when transfers had to sit out, they would promise them, you can sit out, you can get accustomed to college basketball, you can get accustomed to Notre Dame, and you can enter our 1 year MBA program as a graduate student. So you'll be walking out of here with an undergraduate degree and a graduate degree from the business school. They have done away with the 1 year MBA at Notre Dame, which kind of eliminates a transfer saying, well, I'm going to get into that program. So it's hard for Notre Dame to get transfers. I don't see them opening up and being guys like, you look at when I do prep for opponents that play Notre Dame, you look at their rosters and it says 7 transfers, 6 transfers. I think Western Carolina, the team they're playing tomorrow, has 8 transfers. There will never be a time ever, regardless of who the coach is, regardless of how much success that they have, where Notre Dame men's basketball is going to have a roster that has 8 transfers. Maybe 3 or 4, but even that is going to be pushing the limit of what Notre Dame is all about.
Yeah, and I think that just goes back to what the university is about, what they stand for. We hear about it from the football team all the time and their approach to transfers. But I do think that the university made a statement, so to speak, when they paid, it's been well reported, they paid a significant amount of money to get Micah Shrewsberry away from Penn State. They paid that buyout. To you, what does that say about the university's investment into the men's basketball program?
That they're finally serious about it. Like there was no way that they were paying that type of buyout money 5 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago. But they know that that's the way of this basketball world. And if you want your guy, like Micah Shrewsberry from the start, from the minute that Mike Brey said, I'm not coming back for year 24, Micah Shrewsberry was basically at the top of the list at Notre Dame and never fell below number 1. There might have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 and 3 might have changed, 3 and 2, or 2 and 4, whatever. But the number 1 guy for Jack Swarbrick from the start was Micah Shrewsberry, and Jack Swarbrick was committed to saying and explaining to the powers that be over at the university that this is my choice, and if this is my choice, this is what it's going to take to get him here. And the university said, all right, go get your guy, finish this up. Doesn't matter what it costs, he'll be our guy.
Was there something that changed, do you think, that made the university want to invest more into the men's basketball program, or was Shrewsberry just the exception and that Jack's confidence in him was enough for them to be willing to spend that kind of money?
Yeah, and it's time. Like this is the way of the world in college basketball, where Jack Swarbrick's going to say, okay, we're not going to do it with the transfer portal. We're not going to do it with crazy NIL. If we're not going those 2 directions, the least we can do to remain competitive and to give this coaching staff a chance moving forward in the ACC is pay the buyout, get the coach that we want here, number 1, and also the coach who wants to be here, number 2. We'll pay the buyout. We don't have to worry about that much about NIL or the transfer portal, because we'll get our guy, and we've got a guy who's a builder, and he's going to build this the way Mike Brey did it, the way they've always done it at Notre Dame, instead of running to the transfer portal.
And the fact that Shrewsberry signed a 7-year deal was also an investment on his end, too, that he's going to be around for the long haul. And I think that's really exciting about the future of this basketball program, because when I was a student at Notre Dame, I graduated in 2018, so I was a part for both of the Elite Eight runs there. So I tell people this all the time. Like, when I was at Notre Dame, that was the peak of the men's basketball program, at least for in the past couple of decades. And it was a basketball school, because I was also there for the 2016 football season, which was not nearly as fun. So I really enjoyed the Mike Brey era. So I want to preface this next question by clearing that up. But clearly, there's a big difference between the way Shrewsberry runs his program compared to Mike Brey. So what are some of the biggest differences you've seen so far from Micah Shrewsberry's approach to running this program?
It took all of about 2 minutes in the exhibition game last week against Hanover for you to kind of look over at the bench and say, that's a little different. Like, Micah Shrewsberry, not only is he calling the set, he's pointing out where guys should go, where the ball should go, where the screen should come. This guy should be over here. Like, he's coaching his ass off. He's nonstop. He's on the floor. He's moving. He's waving. He's yelling. And then defensively, it's the same way. And if there's a possession that he doesn't like, there was one possession the other night where Julian Roper took a quick three, and it was like, what are you doing taking that shot? Like, you looked over, and Micah Shrewsberry was diagonal to where I was sitting in the press box upstairs, and he just looked at Julian Roper and he just said, "Move it!" And then he yelled it again. And then after time, when there were timeouts, he's going right up to Julian Roper, and he's in his grill about move the ball, don't look for a great shot, get a great shot. Same thing with Tay Davis. Like, that stuff that Mike Brey, he might have saved that for the huddle and gotten into guys' faces in the huddle. But Micah Shrewsberry, he is working from the minute he steps on the floor until that final horn. I mean, you watch Micah Shrewsberry coach, and you're worn out just watching him, because it's just something like, all right, now I get it. Like, that's all we've heard about from Micah Shrewsberry is, I want to do this, I want to do that, this is how I am. This, I'm a sore loser. I don't like losing. We don't really see any of that. And then when the game starts, you see it and you're like, okay, now I get it. This guy just lives and breathes basketball. There was a time that Mike Brey was like that, but when you're at a place for 23 years and you accomplish everything that he does, you're kind of satisfied with everything. You get bored, your program gets stale, and Mike Brey's the first one to say, you know what? It was time. I had to go. I had my run. Let somebody else younger come in here and do it, because I just didn't have the juice anymore.
I know. And when Shrewsberry was getting introduced, he kept talking about how he was a fierce competitor. And it wasn't that I didn't believe him, but when he's in front of a microphone at the end of the game, he seems so nice and cordial. It's like almost hard to picture. Then you watch him on the bench during that Niagara game, and you're like, oh, I see it now. We talked a lot about Mike Brey, so I got to ask you, do you have a favorite Mike Brey story that you feel comfortable sharing on this podcast?
Well, working with the guy and for 23 years, like, I would see him basically every day or every other day for 6 months. So there are so many stories about Mike Brey, but one of them that just comes to mind right away is, and it goes back to the commitment of basketball to the university, where Mike Brey was like, okay, we have a dump of an arena in 2000 when I get here. I'm okay with the arena not being renovated for 9 more years. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the fact that we don't have a practice facility. Every other team in the ACC has a practice facility. We don't need one. I'll accept it. I get it that football takes priority, maybe first priority, maybe second priority, sometimes third and fourth priority at the university. I'm just going to go win games. I'm going to win in the ACC. I'm going to win in the Big East before that. But then there was this one time in the summertime where this thing called American Youth on Parade comes through the Joyce Center every summer, where it's baton twirlers and it's like I don't know what it is. It's all the SUVs in the parking lot are decorated with.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen this. I guess it was when I wasn't in school.
Yeah, you'd be gone for the summertime. But the thing is when American Youth on Parade, and it's been coming to the Joyce Center for probably 40, 50 years. Every single summer it comes in, it takes over the arena. and it takes over the pit, which is what Notre Dame's practice facility used to be before they got Rolfs Hall. So basically, when the Notre Dame men's basketball team was on campus for summer school, they had no place to play for the couple of weeks or the week that American Youth on Parade was here. And it used to drive Mike Brey nuts. And he just like grin and bear it and be like, all right, we'll go practice. We'll go practice at the Rock or go
the bookstore courts.
Yeah, we'll go out on the bookstore courts. We'll practice wherever. Well, one time he leaves his office when his office was in the Enjoy Center, and he was walking out to he had to walk out to his car, which was in the back lot. So he had to wind through the hallways of the Joy Center, and American Youth on Parade's going on, and there's a baton twirler, and Bray almost gets hit in the head with a baton. And at that point, he's like, you know what? I freaking had it with this. He calls me on the phone out of the blue in mid-July, and he says, you got your pen and paper ready? I'm like, Mike, what's going on? What's up? He goes, I want to go on the record right now. And I said, all right, let's go. What's on your mind? He goes, we need an effing practice facility right effing now. I'm sick and effing tired about almost getting hit in the head with a baton. We can't even practice. Our guys can't even practice in the summertime because we got this American. And he just went off for like 5 minutes, and it was great. I said, now, are you sure you want all that on the record? He's like, absolutely. So that's one Mike Brey story. Here's another Mike Brey story for you. I think it was 2018 where they were the 69th team in the tournament that year. Like they were the first team out.
It was when Bonzi got hurt and Matt. Yeah.
But that was the goofy year that TNT did the selection show, and they announced the teams alphabetically. You remember when they did that?
Yeah. Oh God, I remember Twitter after that. It was a nightmare.
So they're going through the teams, and Ernie Johnson is and Ernie Johnson is the nicest man in the world.
Yeah.
He's doing it for TNT, and I think they had just done North Carolina or North Carolina State, and they do North Carolina, and Ernie Johnson says, all right, ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the teams that's on that proverbial bubble. If Notre Dame is making the tournament, this is where the Notre Dame team will slide in. And they show the next team, and it's like North Texas or something. And so it's obvious Notre Dame's not getting in the NCAA tournament. And we go do our stuff over at the arena that night. I come home and I'm writing my story, and my phone rings. I look at my phone, and it's Mike Brey. And I'm like, what's going on? I just talked to you like 5 minutes ago. What's up? He goes, I want you to put this in the story that you're writing tomorrow. I want this on the record. Okay, you ready? I'm like, I'm ready, Mike. He goes, you put in there that the next time I see Ernie Johnson, I'm going to punch him in the face. I'm like, you sure you want that in the paper? He's like, print it. So Mike and I we went round and round on several occasions during his tenure, but there was not a better guy to cover on a day-to-day basis than Mike Brey, because he got it. He got what we did. He got what he needed to do for us. And all throughout those two leagues, first in the Big East and first in the ACC, there would be beat writers from other teams. Duke, Carolina, especially Syracuse with Jim Boeheim. All these beat writers would always come up to me and say, can we trade our guy for your guy? Because they loved Mike Brey as a member of the media. Like, he understood exactly what we needed to do. He didn't care if I was critical. He didn't care if I praised them, because he knew every single day I'd show up at practice and I'd be accountable, and he really appreciated it. And we appreciated him. But again, as we talked about earlier, 23 years, time for him to go. He's an assistant with the Atlanta Hawks. He's doing well. Micah Shrewsberry is doing well, and Notre Dame men's basketball is in good hands this year and moving forward.
I think that is a perfect place to end it on. Tom, thank you so much for the time. And for all the listeners, be sure to follow Tom's work all season long for the South Bend Tribune. I know that I seek out his work anytime there's an update on the men's basketball team, and I'm really grateful to have him on. So thanks again, man. I really appreciate it, and we'll do it again soon.
All right, Tyler. Take care. Have a good weekend, buddy.
Today's episode is also sponsored by Jase Medical. I spend a lot of time talking with you about wins, losses, who starts, and who sits. I'm thankful for that connection, but today I want to talk about something a little more personal. Whether you're on extended travel, bracing for a major weather event, or limited by yet another supply shortage, Jase Medical has you covered. Jase Medical provides life-saving antibiotics and a long list of daily medications that can be ordered in a 1-year supply. Even ED generics for Cialis, Viagra, and Revatio prescriptions. Go online right now at jasemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply of your daily medication. Remember to use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. A verified customer had this to say about Jase. Quote, "I'm so thankful for the service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut bills and have to have it, so I ordered most of my daily meds with the year supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit, and I finally feel secure. Prices are lower than local pharmacies, and I highly recommend this for everyone," end quote. If you or someone you love would like to get some peace of mind by having a year supply of any daily medication, go to jasemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first listen of the day. Tomorrow, we'll switch back to college football coverage and start gearing up for Notre Dame's final home game of the season as they're set to take on Wake Forest this Saturday. I cannot believe we are this close to the end of the regular season, but we got a few more games left and a lot more to talk about, so make sure that you're subscribed on YouTube or wherever you're listening to the podcast, and give us a follow on social media. The Twitter/X is at Locked On Irish. Instagram is at Locked On Irish Pod. My personal Twitter account is at Tyler WOJCIAK. Same time, same place tomorrow. See you then.